Hey, this is Bryce Harper, and welcome to the Philly Show.
Ruben Amaro Jr., Jim Salisbury, Todd Zalecki. It's a Philly Show. It's Thursday, January 15th, 2026. Ruben and Jim, you look great, as always.
Thank you. How about the get-ups you got going? Nice pullover, Todd. Nice T-shirt, man. James.
Look at us. Look at us. Look at us. Guys, everybody is waiting and wondering about Bo Bichette. So are we. So, yeah, quick little recap, and then I want to get what you guys think. The Phillies and Bo Bichette meet on Monday. It went well. It went well by all accounts. They have talked since then. It's not like, hey, Monday, we'll talk to you next week. They've talked since then. And it's funny how much things can change in a few days. Last Thursday, when the Koala and Fair Territories Ken Rosenthal first reported that they were meeting, my conversations was like, a lot of obstacles. There's a path to make this happen. Maybe a little bit of a long shot. Probably a long shot. After the meeting, though, on Monday, people are now cautiously optimistic. They think, oh, boy, there really is a path to make this happen. Still a lot of obstacles to overcome. But what do you guys hear? What do you guys think right now as of Thursday morning with where Bo Bichette and the Phillies stand?
Barney Rubble?
He's my favorite actor. It's funny because JT is so part of this, narrative here.
Vision.
And it feels like, you remember when they got JT, he was never on the radar all winter long. It was the Mets, the Reds, the Dodgers, the Braves. He was going to be one of those teams. And then, he was out there, never on their radar. And then all of a sudden, he's in Philadelphia. This story is really reminded me of that, where, look, Bo Bichette was out there. We fantasized about him a little bit. Right-handed bat, good hitter, would look great in this lineup. I think we fantasized about him and all fall and into the winter. But he was never like a priority item for the Phillies. You heard other teams. Now, all of a sudden, Bregman signs. The Red Sox get Ranger Suarez. So they're looking for a bat, but they might trade for a bat. It might not be a signing like a Bo Bichette. You hear he might not be going back to Toronto. All of a sudden, it's feeling like all roads lead to Philadelphia. Like that's the available chair that he's going to land in. So, and then much like that JT winter when all the chairs disappeared and he was in Philadelphia. So, gosh, it just feels like we know there's something there. We know it.
Right.
It just feels like he could end up here. And if he doesn't, there's so much juice in the city for him right now. There's going to be some serious disappointment. But, watching that Tucker thing, which could come down really here in the short term, and that might fuel a Bo Bichette signing. We'll see. I think, the Phillies obviously have changed their course and said, okay, we'll move on from JT if we can get Bichette. And honestly, I think they would find a way to go $200 million. You think that'll be enough, Ruben?
Well, I think that it sounds like they're willing to go length. They've done it with other players, obviously, 10, 11 years, etc., on some big boys, 5 on Schwarbs. I think it's realistic. And the reason why I think it's realistic, just having known Dave Dombrowski and how he goes about his business, he's not going to have a meeting and he's not going to have these discussions without being really serious about his interest. That's not how he works. And, John Middleton wants his trophy back. And they may overextend to make this happen. I think that they probably at some point realized they can't, quote unquote, run this same lineup back. They probably know that there's a little bit more question marks in their rotation, that it may not be quite as strong. So maybe they do have to get a little bit better offensively regardless. Just think that there's a lot of things that are aligning right now to get them to the point where, we have a real pathway to get a dynamic player to sort of refuel the fan base in some way and to refuel this team, because he's the personality and the quality and the ability that sort of fits everything that they're trying to do, or I think that they want to do in a player. Does this preclude them from doing JT? It could. It might not.
It might not.
It might not, only because, as you've pointed out many times before, Jim and Zoe, they got money coming off after this year. They may be willing to take a very heavy financial hit this year, knowing that later on there might be a reset in the luxury tax. There may be a reset in a lot of different ways, and that they might be able to put themselves in a position to lengthen that window of quality offensive players, meshing it with the quality of their starting pitching and bullpen now, which has been fortified quite significantly. I think it's a good space to be in right now if you're a Philadelphia fan, and I think it would be a little bit of a disappointment for the fans if Bo Bichette does not come to Philadelphia.
I want both, Ruben. I want both.
I want both also, and I think that there's a pathway to do it. It's not our money, and I think that there's a pathway to do it. And I honestly would not be surprised if both JT and Bo Bichette are on that roster come February 11th when they go pitchers and catchers.
And you guys know how much things can change. I say this all the time: one text, one phone call, one conversation, one spirited email to ownership. I always think back to Ruben, your former assistant GM, the great Scott Profrock, sent a letter, an email really, to Dave Montgomery at the time saying, you need to step up. We have an opportunity here. Give us a little more money. We can sign Cliff Lee, and we can have one of the greatest rotations in baseball history. I could see a situation.
Right.
Absolutely. On paper, that is still this best single season performance by any rotation in baseball history, if you believe in Fangraphs WAR.
And Dave Dombrowski,
ability.
You're right about Profrock. Scott Profrock, our friend, our buddy, former Phillies assistant GM with Ruben, very persuasive in that argument pitched to Dave Montgomery and to ownership. Dave Dombrowski, very persuasive as well when it comes to convincing ownership to push it. And when he gets a star in his crosshairs, he a lot of times doesn't let up. And
that's why I love him. Cut sort of from the same cloth. When when you have guys that have done it and been there and had the success and can be true difference makers, why not be aggressive with them? Why not?
Again, going back to last week and going back to how quickly things can change. Last week, my understanding was it is a binary situation. You get Bo Bichette or you get JT Realmuto. You cannot do both. But I agree with you guys that there is a pathway to make this happen. So, for example, say the Phillies come to agreement with Bo Bichette, 8 years, little over 200 million or around 200 million. Can't you see Dave Dombrowski going in there going, John, JT is still out there. Do we really want to take a step back behind the plate? This guy, Zach, I just talked with Zach Wheeler downstairs in the clubhouse. He's rehabbing, and he is so pissed that JT might not be back. We can get him for X amount of years, X amount of dollars. We'll take the hit. You got Castellanos off the books next year. You got Walker off the books next year. We can make this work, John. Can't we make this work? And I could see him going, all right, maybe we can make this work. So real quick, I want to mention, if you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Don't forget, we appreciate the support. Now always go to the Phillies Show shop.com and support the show. So let's talk. I want to talk more about JT and where things stand with him. Before we get to JT and where things stand with him, the top competitors for Bo Bichette right now, how do we see it? Now, the Red Sox on Wednesday just signed Ranger Suarez to a 5-year, $130 million deal. So maybe now they're out on Bo Bichette, or maybe they're less likely to sign him. The Blue Jays have been kind of out on Bo Bichette because they've been focused on Kyle Tucker. But if you all the reports right now say the Mets and the Dodgers are throwing some huge numbers at him on short-term deals. So hypothetically, say the Mets signed Kyle Tucker for 4 years, $200 million. Now the Blue Jays maybe pivot and go back and circle back on Bo Bichette. You have the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Blue Jays, the Red Sox. Do you guys have any thoughts on any of those options in terms of who Phillies fans should maybe be keeping their eye on the most?
I'd keep my eye on all of the above. And I would even add the Mets to the Bo Bichette list if they don't get Tucker. I mean, I know they're not being mentioned, but I mean, you have Brett Beatty and Vientos at third base. I mean, I could see them saying, hey, we're going to go after a bat over there in Bo Bichette. I mean, I don't know if it's likely or not, but Toronto, I hear mixed signals. If Tucker's not in play, maybe he goes back there. But I've also heard maybe the relationship has run its course. Dodgers could go after him and pay him a bunch of money to play second base on a short term, move Edman out to the outfield. Boston is a tricky one because their acquisition of Ranger gives them starting pitching depth that they want an infielder, but they could take that starting pitching depth and turn it into an infielder via trade. I don't know if they're going to spend more big money on free agency. Maybe that works in the Phillies' favor because they'll get the infielder in a trade. I don't know. I mean, the Yankees, I think so much of it depends on a lot of it depends on where Tucker does not end up. Right. So we'll see.
I always get concerned about the Dodgers, number one, just because this type of player sort of fits exactly what the Dodgers want, a winning type player, the attitude, the passion with which he plays. And I can see Andrew Friedman going aggressive on him, and that's a concern. And, they don't have a whole lot of limits as far as dollars are concerned. So that's concerning. Boston concerns me some, but I just feel like when the Phillies have, especially the last couple of years, have had their mind set or eyes set on someone, I would be surprised if they get sort of outbid. And I mean, let's face it, this is an attractive place to play. You've got great players on a team that's won very consistently over the last several years with a real chance to win a World Series. And I got to believe that all of those things intertwined gives the Phillies a real advantage to beat. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen. It doesn't happen until the man signs on the dotted line. But I do believe that there's a very good – I thought it was over 50% right now, just having seen what's going on around the industry. I'm going to say closer to 70% he's going to sign him.
So how about this? This is a factor. It's not going to be the final factor, but Bo Bichette obviously has come up his entire played with the Blue Jays his entire career. They have spring training in Dunedin, Florida. Bo Bichette lives in the offseason in the St. Pete area. Kind of reminds me a little bit of, and I'm not saying exactly, but it reminds me of when Roy Halladay wanted to be traded. He's like, I live here. I want to go to the Yankees or the Phillies. That's the only two. Now he has more freedom to go wherever he wants because he's a free agent. But yeah, maybe he wants to stay a little close to home. It's nice sleeping in your own bed in spring training. You get those extra 6-7 weeks every year.
Now, do you think the Bregman AAV at 35, I know it's just 5-year deal, but the Bregman AAV of 35 affects what Bo and his agent will be looking for in terms of the AAV, because there's a lot of, they're comparable in a lot of ways, but Bo is 4 years younger. So, would Bo want something like, would he want $30 million per year? In that case, 7 years times 30 is $210 million. I could see the Phillies doing that. I really could.
Yeah, it puts them in a tough position because they'll have so many $30 million players.
But where they are as an organization.
But it's not an impossible. It's not an impossibility. I do think that Bregman's AAV does draw them up. I thought that Bregman's AAV was going to be between a 25 and a 30 in the 27 range. Still may. But again, at the end of the day, it may end up being length, and it doesn't seem like the Phillies are averse to going lengthy.
I guess the argument, if you're the Phillies, you can make this pitch, right, is that a lot of Bregman's money was deferred, so it lowers the AAV for salary tax purposes, correct?
Sure does.
I believe, or you can at least make that argument, like, well, it's not present day value at the very least. I know he's getting 35, but he's not really getting 35. Right. So maybe we can meet halfway, or maybe we can get it down closer to that $25 million number. But it complicates things maybe a little bit.
And it's all about the now for the Phillies. I know it would be a long-term deal, but
yeah,
you got to win now, like 26, 27.
And I'll never forget like some of the things that John Middleton said about being a legacy type franchise, being an all-time, like you'd think about like the greatest franchises in the National League, and you're thinking probably the Cardinals, right? As far as just winning. And now it's the Dodgers, right? It's the Dodgers and the Cardinals. That's where John Middleton wants to be. He wants to be viewed as a legacy in the industry and a legacy owner. This could help him get there.
For sure.
Because it's not just like this twinkly star that, is out there. It's a star that fits your biggest need. Right-handed guy who puts the bat on the ball, drives in and runs, can hit it over the wall, can hit it in the gaps. A right-handed bat that is going to help bring out the best in some of your left-handed studs. And
imagine if they bring JT back as well, which again, as of last week, it was like, no, one or the other. Now maybe there is a path. Okay, so let's go back. Let's talk a little bit more about JT. So before the winter meetings, the Phillies made an offer to JT. I don't know if it was a 2-year deal, 3-year deal, whatever, but they thought it was a legitimate offer that might be the best offer that he might get all offseason. That was kind of the feeling at the time. Obviously, JT disagreed. He's coming off that 5-year, $115.5 million deal. AAV 23.1. He does not wanted to take a real significant pay cut from that number, even though he's 35 and he's coming off his worst offensive year. Jim, you said
the market has changed,
and the market. Absolutely. And now, Jim, you said nothing had really moved since the winter meetings. Jim, you said on December 22nd, on our December 22nd show, that the Phillies and Realmuto were playing a game of chicken. Mm-hmm. And then you also have been talking for the past few weeks about a 3-year offer being on the table. He might end up signing a 3-year offer. What can you tell us about? Can you tell us anything more about where things stand?
No, I've been hearing for several weeks that they've made a 3-year offer, but the sticking point is the money. Mm-hmm. And the 3-year offer I've heard is south of $45 million, which may or may not be a significant number, because everything I hear is he would like to, be paid closer to $20 million. So, they have work to do to bridge that gap. And JT is, like I said, a game of chicken. The Phillies don't want to bid against themselves. I think they're pretty certain there's not a huge market, though. From what I hear, JT does have a landing spot if it doesn't work out here. Okay. I'm sure that's probably a 1-year deal. You think about teams that might need a catcher. Tampa Bay comes to mind. But I think this is the place he wants to be. I know this is the place he wants to be. We all know that. But it's not a matter of the years, because they have shown that they're willing to go to 3. It's a matter of what the number is.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily agree with going to 3, but if they've gone to 3, they've gone to 3. The question is, if they do sign Bo Bichette, do they change their offer or do they pull the offer?
Yeah.
That's the real question that I have. If they do sign Bo Bichette, and are they having those conversations with JT, and or when I say JT, not necessarily JT, his representative, right, that if they do make this move, and I don't think they're doing it as a threat. This is not a game.
No, it's a chance to get better.
Not what, Dave Dombrowski's job is to put the best possible team on the field under and be fiscally responsible. And he's got to get the approval from his ownership group. And I don't think he's playing around. I don't think he's like doing one versus the other or anything like that. I think he's trying to make sure that at the end of the day, he can put the best team he possibly can on the field. And the pursuit of Bo Bichette, for me, I've gotten to the point where I think the team might be better off going with Bichette than JT. I would not have said that before until I started to really analyze, what the change might be. If it is indeed an either or, that I'd be willing to go with Marchand and or others to handle the catching position.
I think the gains you make in the lineup with that big need and the right-handed bat and with how good he is, I think it makes you a better team, even if you have to take a step back behind the plate. You bring in Caratini, pair him with Marchand, you bring in Jonah Heim, you pair him with Marchand, or you let Marchand ride with it. We'll see. But you look at that lineup and what it would do for you in October. And now I know a lineup can go cold. The best lineup, Murderer's Row, could go cold in a 2-week stretch. It happens. It's baseball. But I like your chances of staying hot a little bit more because, everybody drafts off that right-handed bat in the lineup. Those left-handed bats will benefit from him.
No doubt. You guys both mentioned Marchand. What about Victor Caratini, Garrett Stubbs, for instance, and then including, this is maybe a dumb idea, but including Marchand in a trade to maybe get a little bit more money back. If you deal a Nick Castellanos to a team that needs a little pop, maybe you get an extra $1 million or $2 million. I
would keep Marchand. I think I like Marchand as a number one if JT doesn't resign.
And here's the
chance. I want to give him a chance to go out there and catch 100 games.
Here's the problem with banking on getting money back for Castellanos. The whole world knows he's going to be released. They're just going to sit back and wait till they can pay the league minimum if they have interest in him. It's going to be the same thing if you get Bichette. Now the whole world knows you have to move Bohm, and that's going to really affect what you get back, right? So, these rival teams, they're schmat.
Exactly. I'm wondering though. So the Phillies earlier this week, they got this reliever from the Pirates, Chase Shugart. He's got a minor league option remaining, so he's like a bullpen candidate. Gives them a little bit more bullpen depth. And so again, they're at 40 players on the 40-man roster. And my immediate thought was, next guy they signed, there goes Castellanos. They're gonna release him. But there could be other guys they maybe take off the 40-man if they believe they could get $1 million or $2 million for Nick Castellanos. Do you think that, they can find somebody and maybe a couple teams he could pin against each other if the money is so tight right now and every dollar counts, do they hold on to a little bit longer?
There's some teams that have been sort of hand slapped that might have to put dollars onto their payroll. The Pittsburgh Pirates and the Tampa Bay Rays and other teams, maybe even the Colorado Rockies, whose payrolls are so minimal that they're starting to get kind of hand slap from the MLBPA, that they may have to take on some money associated with a player like Castellanos. And so I wouldn't be surprised that they could get maybe one or two teams. It only takes two teams to have a little bit of flexibility. Maybe it saves them an extra couple of million, $4 million, $3 million, $5 million for some of those teams that, one, need offense, and two, need to show the world that they're trying a little bit better.
Question posing to you both. You get Bo Bichette. We've talked about this, but I've been thinking about this a lot. Do you make him your second baseman and move Stott to third, or do you just stick him at third where he's never played? But do you he's played the left side of the infield. Do you say, play third base, Bobby Dickerson, go to work on him, and we're going to keep our Gold Glove caliber guy at second where he's strong instead of uprooting him? What do you do?
That's such a great question.
Go ahead, Todd.
I think Stott's the better defender, so you hate to move him off the middle there. Everybody for 100 years has talked about the importance of being strong on the middle. JT, that's why it was so great to see the improvement from Turner. That's why you want to have a great center fielder. That's why you want to have a great second baseman. So I'm tempted to leave Stott at second and hope that Bobby Dickerson can work his magic and make Bichette a competent third baseman. You saw what he did with Alec Bohm. I effing hate this place at one point. From now he's a guy you don't really think about that much at third base. So I'm going to say put Bo Bichette at third base and let Bobby D work his magic.
So here's what I would do. You're committing to this guy for 6 or 7 years. You let him decide. Where do you want to play, second or third? And then make the adjustment. In my baseball mind, I'd rather have Stott stay at second and let Bichette adjust to third because he's been on the left side of the field for his entire career. Obviously not at third. He hasn't played there, but he's been on the left side of the field. The ball comes off that side. But ultimately, if you're going to commit 6 years to this or 7 years or whatever it may take, you let him decide where he feels more comfortable and make the adjustment accordingly. And I do believe that Stott can play third base well enough.
Really?
Whether it's holding a space for Aiden Miller at the time, whether at some point that becomes a platoon with Stott and Miller at third base, left, right, who knows? But it gives you the beauty of Stott is that he gives you flexibility because the man will play anywhere and play it well in all three of those positions and 4 positions if you want to count first base.
Jim, where do you want to see him go?
I'm kind of on the side of seeing what Bobby Dickerson could do with him at third base, just because, like you said, I like the strength up the middle. I think Turner and Stott have developed a really good chemistry, and I want my best gloves up the middle. And Stott is stellar at second base. I'll always opt for anyone stellar in their spot and keep them stellar, and see what he can do at third base. And if you have to adjust, you have to adjust.
So let's wrap this up. I want to get your Ranger Suarez signed a 5-year, $130 million deal with the Red Sox. Give me what you will remember most about Ranger, or what you will miss the most about Ranger.
Good guy, real good guy. The poise in big moments. I love that season he had a few years ago when he literally was like a starting pitcher. He was their closer and he was a setup man all in the same season, and delivered on all fronts.
I think it was 22, wasn't it?
Yeah, it might have been. And
I think it was 22.
Just a good-spirited guy, happy-go-lucky. And I remember the first time I heard his name was when he pitched a no-hitter, I think in maybe like Williamsport, Todd, or Lakewood or somewhere, as a very young minor leaguer. And I remember the first time I interviewed him was at a prospect seminar. It was this young kid, and I was talking to him about his unique first name, and he just said his parents liked that name. In fact, they named his sister Rangerina, Ranger I-N-A, and you would pronounce that differently in Espanol. I'm sorry. I'm kind of mangling it. Yeah, I'm mangling it, and I apologize for that. But
all right. Really,
really good guy, and I wish him well up there in the land of the bean and the cod.
Hey, so I love the kid. We signed him at the time in 2012, I think it was. He was signed by Sal Agostinelli for, I think it was like $25,000 or something. I mean, for him to become the pitcher that he was, so cool for him to be able to sign this contract for he and his family in the future, and several generations of Suarez is down the line. But what I love the most about him when I think about Ranger is, you talked about a little bit, it was his poise, his joy for the game. But he sort of reminded me, if anybody remembers, the old Cuban pitcher, Livan Hernandez it was almost like Livan Hernandez from the left side. He's just having a catch with the catcher.
Yeah.
I'm going to play catch with this guy, and I'm going to get people out because I can change speeds, and I'm not going to get super affected by what goes on around me. This guy could fall. I'm going to try to make my next pitch and see where it goes from there. And I just – great kid, lifetime Philly until now, and I wish him the best, and I hope we're not facing him in the World Series. Or, well, maybe I am hopeful that we face him in the World Series. That'd be great for the Phillies.
It would be. We gotta avenge that World Series loss. The Phillies do. They have to avenge that 1915 World Series loss.
Oh, there you go.
That was a killer. Grover Cleveland Alexander couldn't get it done.
You were right there in the stands watching there, Jimmy.
Harry Hooper went deep twice.
So when I think about Ranger, I obviously I think about how cool and calm and collected and how goofy he was in the clubhouse and just how that translated into him not being bothered by anything. And that's why I think he's going to be fine in Boston. I don't think anything's going to bother him. You see some players fold up there, New York, Philly. He's not going to.
Nope.
I think he's going to be fine up there.
He was. I remember talking to him once for like a background story. He was an accidental pitcher. He was a soccer player.
Yeah.
And they had like a league in his town, and somebody said, "Hey, you want to come play baseball?" He was like 13 or something, 14. And they stuck him in center field, and he liked it. And then one day they needed somebody to pitch, and he said, I'll try it. And he did pretty good. And they said, hey, why don't you come back to the next game? And that's how he became a pitcher.
And then you think back to I went back yesterday and I watched the show we had last January with Caleb Cotham, because I remember this anecdote that Caleb said. He's like, when Ranger's on, I think he's one of the best pitchers in baseball. He's like, he's the only guy I've ever seen that can go out in a bullpen and dot 30 straight pitches and then walk off the mound, flipping the ball up in the air and just chuckling to himself after he just went out there and went, whoop, whoop, whoop.
Right. And that was a great anecdote by Caleb. He kind of punctuated it by saying, you walk away thinking that might have been the best bullpen session I've ever seen in my life.
Absolutely. But
it's just nice to have enjoyed somebody actually pitching.
Yes.
Which is what he did. Didn't have to do it with stuff. He did it with change of speed and command. And it's nice to see a guy be able to do that and have success and be rewarded for it. Pretty cool.
And he's going to have to keep doing it, Rubio, because
the velocities are coming down. He's throwing, 88 to 90, 91 now.
Yeah. And that great game he pitched maybe midsummer in Atlanta when I was watching the game on TV, and everybody was like, wow, his velo is really down. But he ends up pitching like 7 innings, and the maximum exit velocity was 76 miles an hour. That was the average exit velocity for the day. I mean, he just limits
command
contact,
and changes speeds, man.
Doesn't
just take the
walk
ball
people,
off the barrel.
Keeps the ball in the yard, doesn't walk people.
Yeah. Just a great personality, great fit in the clubhouse. I think that will be missed for sure. But it's good to see one of those guys, those command control guys, getting $130 million. So, guys, enjoy your weekend. I will see you if we need an emergency pod. So have your phones on, gentlemen. We may need to make that happen.
As long as Verizon doesn't have another national outage.
There we go. Otherwise, we will see you guys next week.
Smell you later, boys.
Smell you, Jimmy.
The Philly Show is brought to you by the Foul Territory Network. Subscribe to The Philly Show on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.